Hello, this is Shelby from Turn Sounds. Don't feed ducks white bread. Hi, I'm Shelby. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist.
And I'm Abbey, a clinical nutritionist. And this is the Move Your Mind podcast,
where we talk all things diet, exercise and well-being and back it up with evidence
from our Bachelor of Health Science degrees. So welcome and let's get into it. All right, welcome to today's episode.
Hello.
Today I'm going to be chatting about the pH of our bodies.
Ooh.
Yeah, don't turn off this episode if you don't understand what that means.
My brain straight away goes, I don't know what she's talking about.
pH simply is a measure of the acidity or the alkalinity of something.
Yeah.
So it's a scale of 1 to 14, with like 1 being more acidic. Like a pH of 1 is battery acid. It will burn you.
Yeah.
And then it goes all the way up to 14, which is more alkaline or more basic.
Yeah.
And then middle ground is 7, obviously, half of 14,
nice.
Which is neutral, and that's water.
Cool. All right, yeah.
So in our bodies, there's lots of talk, I think, in the health and wellness industry that if our body fluids, particularly our blood, either sit more acidic or more basic, that it can either have negative health effects or positive health effects.
Okay, yes.
So the pH of our blood, it's pretty tightly regulated, actually very tightly regulated.
Yeah.
It sits between 7.35 and 7.45.
Okay, so fairly neutral.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And if it goes below 7.35, that's known as acidosis, which is quite significant, and you will be in hospital.
Absolutely.
And if it goes above 7.45, that's alkalosis.
Yes.
That is quite significant. You will also be in hospital.
That was my thought just then. Like, our bodies are so tightly regulated. How far out could you really get?
Not far.
Like body temperature even, it's like within the degrees.
Completely.
So, yeah.
So that's kind of a preface of how this episode will go. You can see how tightly it's regulated. So
really, is there a significant impact?
Yes. Can you really change it to cause negative health effects?
Yeah.
We'll get there though. But what I wanted to start with is how I kind of came up with this episode idea. It came across from our last episode or two episodes ago, which was how can I improve my digestion?
Yes.
I did a post on my Instagram just after we released the episode with a little infographic about recommendations as to how we can improve our digestion in our mouth, in our stomach, in our small intestine and our large intestine. And one of the recommendations I said in terms of improving stomach digestion was to reduce or avoid water consumption during meals.
Yeah, I remember this.
So the thought around that is related to pH. So your stomach acid, obviously it's an acid, so it sits on the acidic range, usually between 1 to 3.
Wow, okay, yeah.
So very acidic.
Quite, yeah.
Stomach acid, hence why if you do vomit or you regurgitate acid, it burns.
Yes.
It's not comfortable at all. So yeah, it sits at a pH of around 1 to 3. And the generalized thought is that if you drink water during meals, as we mentioned at the start of this episode, water is neutral. It sits at 7.
Yeah.
So even though it's not classed as alkaline, it is more alkaline. So if you add water with a higher pH to an acid as a lower pH, the liquids combine, they mix around, it will raise the pH of your stomach acid.
Making it less acidic.
Making it, less acidic. Yeah. And because the acid is what does the protein breakdown, that kind of follows through to maybe it will make your digestion of protein less effective.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, right?
From that train of thought, yes.
Yes, completely.
If those things work that way.
Yeah, well, that's the question. But then following on from that, because you have your enzymes in your stomach, which we discussed, pepsin in particular, that works at an optimal pH of 2.5. So our body's pretty smart, keeps gastric acid 1 to 3.
Cool.
So then pepsin can work optimally.
Nice.
So then if you're diluting, you're increasing the pH of your stomach acid by having water during your meal. It not only weakens the acid, but then it can change the optimal activity of your pepsin. So then, once again, like negatively affects protein breakdown.
Yeah.
But then, I got a message from Dr. Nikki Bondono,
Yeah.
who was in one of our episodes. It was a little while ago.
Yeah, something about apples, right?
Yeah, I think it was, did apples keep this doctor?
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember you did a pun. It was like, did apples keep this doctor away?
Because it was so cool that she was a doctor.
Yes.
Yes.
Because Nikki is a doctor and she was studying the effects. Well, one of her first studies was the effects of apples and pectin on cardiovascular health.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a message from Nikki and she said, hey, I just saw your post. I actually was just researching the effects of water intake during and around meals on protein breakdown and gastric acid function.
Nice.
Like, what's your research? What did you find? Because I was struggling, because she said she was struggling to find conclusive evidence on its effect on, enzyme function and acid kind of strength, I guess.
Yep.
And I sat down, I read it, and I was like, you know what? That's something that I actually didn't collect a specific study on. So it was anecdotal evidence, which is kind of evidence which is not on direct fact, but is on like human experience, word of mouth, in my case, clinical experience, because with quite a few of my clients that were suffering from things like reflux and bloating and gas and signs of poor digestion in the stomach region, by lowering their water around their meals and during meals, it actually did help them.
Cool.
So it was just something, one of the things that you just accept. You hear, I heard it from all my supervisors. That was one of the main things that we're instructed to do when we were going into clinical practice.
Yes, you're self-finding it's working with your clients.
So I just kind of rolled with it. But then after Nikki's message, I started to think, hold on, let's go back to the pH of our blood.
Yes.
That is so tightly regulated. Our bodies function in, 0.01 or 0.1 of a unit measurement because, we're complicated beings. We have certain needs that need to be met. So I thought, if our blood is so tightly regulated, I wonder if the effect of water on our stomach acid is allowed to be significant
would your body
enough.
allow that to happen?
Yeah, would your body allow the dilution to the point where it would affect digestion?
Particularly of certain enzymes.
Yes.
Our body's just trying to make enzymes work and keep an environment suitable for them to work.
Yes. So it's like, with the science behind it, as I explained with dilution, yes, it's going to increase the pH of your stomach acid, but the question is the significance, and that's what evidence always comes down to. You can throw out a fact, and it can be true, but is it true enough to make a substantial recommendation?
Yeah.
And that's where I had to reassess and be like, Abbey, did you just say something that maybe wasn't backed up by enough evidence?
Yeah.
And, we learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm always open to thinking deeper, and this actually made me think very deeply. So let me get into what I found. So a lot of research articles, a lot of just rereading about acid-base balance, acid or alkali balance in the body. And just like our blood, which has a buffer system, which kind of keeps everything within the 0.1 range. Yeah. I won't go into what a buffer is, but just know that a buffer balances out either too alkaline or too acid to make it what it needs to be.
Yeah.
So just like our blood has a buffer, so does our stomach.
Yes.
So our stomach has a buffer capacity, which is kind of like held back stomach acid, which can then be released if the pH of our stomach gets too high.
So like a reserve kind of bottle of acid ready to go to pull everything down.
Well, I mean, it's not reserved, because if you had acid just in a pool, it would degrade all the stomach mucosa. But our body has the capacity to produce more if it needs to. As I said, we're pretty smart.
Yes.
So essentially, the buffer capacity is the amount of stomach acid or hydrochloric acid required to lower your stomach's pH back to the optimal 1 to 3 level when it's disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
When we eat and when we drink, it was confirmed in the studies that I found that it does increase your pH by a point or two to roughly about 4 or 5.
Okay.
So yes, water does increase the pH of your stomach acid, and so does food.
Yes.
So there was a study it was a 2008 study, so we like more relevant or more recent studies.
But I mean, if it's good research, it's good research.
Yes,
you know?
I do agree. And it was very interesting.
Yeah.
It was on 10 to 12 individuals, so small, but mean age of 26.
Mm-hmm.
They had them ingest 200 millilitres of water
Mm-hmm.
and then measured the acidity of their stomach acid, their stomach environment.
Mm-hmm.
And they found in just 1 minute, the 200 millilitres of water increased stomach acid levels to a pH of above 4
Okay.
in just a minute.
Yes. Quick.
So, as I said, it has an effect. There was also a study on the activity of pepsin, so your protein enzyme, in different pHs. And in a pH of 4, pepsin activity was decreased by 25% in 15 minutes.
Yep.
And then another 25% after another 15 minutes. So in half an hour in a pH of 4, where it shouldn't be,
Yeah.
your protein breakdown, its effectiveness was
Halved.
decreased. Yeah, it was halved,
Yeah.
essentially. But in the original study in 2008,
Sorry, that pepsin 15 minute, was that in a person or did they create
It was
that
in a person.
a lab? Yeah. Okay.
yes, it was in a person. In the original study, the 2008 study, yes, it had an effect in 1 minute, but I'm going to ask you a question. How long do you think the effect lasted?
Yeah, well, now I'm confused. I don't know. I would think not long because we've got this ability to create more acid to pull it back
Okay.
in. So I'd think the same amount of time to pull it back down.
Oh,
I
so you
that's
reckon
quick.
2 minutes?
Yeah.
You're pretty bang on. Yeah, the effect lasted for 3 minutes.
Nice. Cool.
And
yeah.
this is due to the stomach acid buffer that I mentioned before.
Yes.
Very similar to our blood. So the fact that food sits in your stomach for about 2 hours while it's, mechanically churned and before it passes into your small intestine, this 3 minutes where your pH of your stomach acid is slightly disrupted, it's really insignificant.
So that study where they found the 25% decrease in 15 minutes, how did they keep the environment at 4 for that long if it returns back after 3 minutes?
That is a very good question.
That's why I asked if it was in a lab or something, like was it an artificial environment that they kept it at that level for?
Okay, I take that back. It must have been. Yes, because yes, it was artificial because I had that exact same thought.
Yeah.
And I just scrolled down to my notes in an asterisk and it's like, pepsin was artificial environment, stomach buffer was not present.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Cool. That makes sense. Then.
Doesn't make a difference though with this effect. It just shows how enzymes can be negatively impacted if the pH changes.
Exactly. But it shows that would be a fact, that pepsin effectiveness is halved in half an hour at a higher pH. Like that could be said.
Yes.
But then you have to add the caveat of, but that doesn't happen in our bodies.
Yes.
So that's how this evidence can be kind of construed different ways depending on what you want it to mean.
Yeah, and that's what, to be honest, a fact like that, yeah, very good point. A fact like that is what kind of would have made me believe it too.
Yeah.
Because I read it and then I just accepted it. And because I was surrounded by it, I was just like, oh yeah, sweet, cool, move on. And it takes time and good researching and proper thought to assess, the real power of the evidence.
Correct.
And I think that's what we're all about, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sometimes you can get shaded by what you hear, but always turn to investigating yourself and not taking big health steps or habits on that don't have the basis, or you haven't talked to someone which can educate you.
And we really can't extrapolate this evidence too far at all. Like for evidence to be kind of appropriate, it needs to as closely represent your population as possible or your situation or whatever.
Yes. And that's a very good point, because then if you've got people with gastric issues, like you've got lots of burping and gas after you eat your meals, and if you've got reflux, which could be due to low stomach acid, then drinking water, like 200 mils even of water, could be an added kind of irritant or an added disruption, which your body doesn't necessarily need.
Fair.
So it's like, no, it's not going to cause a massive effect. Your enzymes aren't going to be completely inactive. But if you're compromised, why would you add something else that, you know, even for 3 minutes, it does have an effect?
And then the extra energy required to create the extra acid to bring it back down. Like, is that something we're considering as well as far as added stress on the system?
Potentially. That's something that I'd probably need to research once again to find the significance. But your body does require nutrients as well to form the digestive enzymes and the gastric acid, which we discussed in the episode 2 episodes ago.
Yes, 34.
So yeah, and then in terms of gas as well, if you're, and it's all relative too, like the speed in which you have the water, how you drink the water, and how much you have the water. If you're gulping down a large amount of water, you're going to be swallowing gas. And that is once again a contributing factor to gas production. So if you have that, if you're prone to that when you eat, maybe eliminating water whilst you eat will be a good recommendation for you.
Interesting.
You know? And then if you have reflux, water adds volume. So if you're filling up your tummy more and then you're prone to regurgitation upwards, if you're increasing the height at which your stomach contents are near your esophagus, yes, it's going to make reflux worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, fair.
Can you understand? I got into the recording room today. I was like, my brain, Shelby. Like, there's so many variables.
Yes.
I guess.
Absolutely.
And that's why we love science, and that's why we love research.
Yeah. But that's why it's also easy to just say, don't drink water around meals, because it's too much, really, to get into everything like this. Because is there, I know, sorry if I'm cutting you off.
No.
Is there a negative to not drinking? Like, is it easier to just not drink water? Sorry, is there a positive to drinking water?
Yes, and that's something that I got into too, because as you think, well, why would we even discuss this if you can just avoid it and you'll be fine?
Yeah, especially around meals.
Yeah. There's research or, once again, anecdotal evidence, which some people do benefit from water during meals if they have low saliva excretion, because that water adds as like a lubricant almost, which can help the food pass down the esophagus and into the stomach a little bit more readily. It can add some lubrication and a bit of fluid for chewing and the kind of like salivary enzyme activity in terms of breaking down things.
Yeah.
If it's got a larger medium to kind of work within.
Yep.
Once again.
But that would be a smaller amount. Like, I'm thinking like sips of water anyway, if you needed to help something like that.
Agreed. Yes. And then that would hopefully minimize the gas that would be gulped in if you're gulping water down.
Yeah.
And if you're reducing the volume, then you're reducing the extent of the pH increase and the dilution. So if you do feel like you have to drink water during your meals, go for little sips. Yeah.
Cool.
So that was that.
Nice.
That went for way longer than I expected it to.
Yes.
Well and truly, when me and Nikki were chatting on Messenger, because Nikki's gone off on her venture to research again in the UK. I think that's where she is. Yeah. And Nikki said, we're in the deep end of the nerd pool. And I said, oh my God, I love that.
You're right there.
That's me. I'm swimming there 90% of my life. And it's very stressful sometimes. A lot of brain power.
Exactly.
Yeah. But here's where kind of the new information, or even more new information on a different topic within the same kind of realm starts.
Yeah.
So naturally, of course, I was thinking about the pH of stomach acid. And then I was thinking about all the other recommendations that I heard in terms of digestion in the stomach. And, okay, have this to increase the acidity and help protein breakdown. Don't have this because it dilutes it, i.e. the water.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to mind was apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Yeah. Well, not too long ago, maybe actually a few months ago now, I was at the grocery store and I sent you a picture of apple cider vinegar and I go, is this worth us getting? Because I heard that you have a shot of it every morning and all the celebrities are like, yes, I feel amazing. And you're kind of like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. I don't actually remember that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I said that.
It was already in the trolley and I forgot it. So it's still sitting in my pantry unopened because I ended up buying it. But then we had a better conversation about it. And I was like, I probably don't need it.
Classic.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, with apple cider vinegar, in terms of pH.
Yes.
Once again, significance. I did a Google search. I like to do that sometimes when I start researching to see what people, general population would get if they searched, will apple cider vinegar help digestion?
Yeah,
That's
I do it
literally
too.
what I searched.
Yeah.
And this is what I came up with. It said, it's thought this home remedy helps balance your stomach pH by neutralizing stomach acid. There's so much wrong with that.
It's like, isn't neutral 7 and isn't acid? How? Okay,
So apple cider vinegar is a vinegar. It's acidic.
It's acidic.
Vinegar is acidic. It sits at a pH of around 2 to 3.
Okay.
Your stomach acid is an acid. It's acidic. It sits at a pH of about 1 to 3.
Yeah.
If you're neutralizing something that's an acid, you got to go to the other end of the spectrum,
You gotta add the
or
other
at
side.
least around water, which is neutral.
Yeah.
So how could an acid neutralize an acid? That makes no sense.
So not even from like if you had low stomach acid at 1 and you had apple cider vinegar at like 3, it would rank at 2, which is better.
No, it's still
No.
an acid.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
still
So it has none of that effect.
No.
It's acid. It's acid.
It's an acid adding to an acid.
Yeah.
So that is just silly. It made me laugh.
Doesn't
I was
work.
like, caps lock in my notes. Makes no sense.
And this is what people are reading
Yeah.
just from like an easy search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes without saying though, if you do want to have apple cider vinegar, like they say in the 15 minutes before your meal, I guess because it's an acid with the same, a little bit higher pH than stomach acid,
Yeah.
it can mimic the action of your stomach acid. So it can promote the acidic pH, which allows pepsin to work.
Okay.
No, it doesn't have the pepsin in it, but if you have low stomach acid,
Yeah.
then I guess it can add an acidic property which can optimize, I guess.
So is that like the added
environment.
acid that we would otherwise produce?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, probably that's only beneficial for people with low stomach acid, which is something that should be investigated and diagnosed.
Correct.
In terms of me being a clinical nutritionist, I do something called a betaine hydrochloric acid test, which kind of tests your tolerance to external acids. So if you ingest acids and you don't have any symptoms of acid regurgitation or excess acid, then that probably shows you're low in natural stomach acid.
Yeah.
Just as a simple way to explain it.
Yes.
But then if you don't have low stomach acid, then your body is more than capable of producing the right amount of stomach acid. And also, you produce about 200 milliliters of stomach acid in your meals. Is the 1 tablespoon of acid really going to have significant effect? That's something I didn't go into the rabbit hole with, but it was just a thought to kind of ponder about.
Yeah.
And then you think, if you don't have insufficient stomach acid and you're giving yourself exogenous acid, will that decrease your body's ability to produce its own acid because it becomes reliant on an external source?
Yeah, it doesn't have to.
So, and that's something that I actually noticed within myself. I was addicted to apple cider vinegar. And this was my 17-year-old self getting on the health bandwagon.
Absolutely.
Reading about it, as you said.
Yeah.
And, I didn't have the tools or the brain capacity, I guess, at that point to go into the research. I accepted what I heard and I took it.
Absolutely.
And I would have apple cider vinegar in a little bit of water before every single meal.
Yeah.
For one, it's an acid. It actually damaged my tooth enamel to the point where I have little to no tooth enamel and my gums are receding.
Insane.
As a result of acid breakdown.
Yeah. And how long did you have that before a meal? Like what duration? Years, months, days?
It was probably a good 1.5 years.
Yeah, wow.
Like 3 times a day.
Oh my goodness.
And then I don't know what happened in my life. I guess I just learnt more. And I thought, do you really need this? What are you doing? And I kind of just slowly stopped having it. And to be honest, in the 3-4 months after I stopped having it, I did have more digestive discomfort.
Yeah.
Probably because I became so reliant on the acid.
Yeah, for such a long time. That's a fair amount of time for your body to get used to something.
Yeah. And then now I don't really have much digestive concerns.
Good.
Because I've been able to trust my body and I feed it well and I know what's good for it and it functions the way it should.
Yeah.
So yeah, apple cider vinegar for digestion. Maybe if you have low stomach acid, if you suspect that, see a professional.
Absolutely.
If you are part of the general pop, probably not.
Yeah.
Because for
You don't need it.
you don't need it.
Yeah.
Your body's very capable of producing enough acid.
Yeah.
But then with your extra benefits that you reeled off. So
Yeah.
you said, what did you say?
I can't remember. I don't even know them that well. I just know as a general thing, people
Yeah.
tend to say it's good for you.
Yes, but like, okay.
Is it like skin health? I don't remember. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many things thrown out about apple cider vinegar. Yeah, skin health,
Yeah.
weight loss, blood sugar regulation, appetite, which kind of links to weight loss.
Yeah.
So then I got myself researching into that.
Nice.
Also probiotics or gut health.
Okay. Yeah.
With apple cider vinegar. And one thing that I found really funny, actually, was on the topic of weight loss and appetite regulation.
Yeah.
All the things that I found was that the studies show that apple cider vinegar, yes, it reduced appetite and did cause marginal weight loss as a result of reduced appetite
Yeah. Why? I mean-
because of how foul it tasted. So people's appetite mechanisms and desire for food was decreased because of the slight subconscious nausea that was caused by ingesting an acid. I thought that was so funny.
Amazing.
So, I mean, once again, I guess it kind of works.
It's like that
But
stuff
how?
you paint on your nails to stop you biting them. It's like, this
That
will
is-
grow your nails longer, but really it's just because it tastes so bad you're not going to
That
bite
is
them anymore.
such a good analogy. That is a perfect, explanation of how that works. And then with kind of skin health and gut health, that comes back to probiotics, the little gut bacteria that proliferate and have a variety of effects. We talk about this a lot. I won't go into it too much. Episode number 2, if you want to go back to that.
I think it was even. Yes.
Yeah, so apple
3?
cider vinegar, I think it was 2.
Anyway, cool.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
Apple cider vinegar, it's fermented. So for something to be fermented, it does have episode 3.
Episode 3, gut health. I was going to say, my mental health one was number 2. Gut health is episode 3.
It's fermented,
Yeah.
so it has, the idea is it has a natural presence of gut bacteria, which is true. You will see there's types of apple cider vinegar. There's just plain, which is filtered, or there's apple cider vinegar with the mother. The mother sounds so scary. I always thought, what on earth is that?
An
But
alien.
next time you go to the shops, have a look at apple cider vinegar in the glass containers.
Okay.
And you'll see the ones with the mother. It has it's kind of a string-like, darker, kind of swirly thing that if you twirl it around, it kind of spins. It's so strange. But that is the mother.
Okay.
And
that
that's
just sits
all-
in the jar.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of similar to a SCOBY for kombucha.
Yes, that one I've definitely heard. When you mentioned this before the show, I was like, I don't think I've heard of that, but I know the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want apple cider vinegar for its probiotic and gut helping effects, you've got to get apple cider vinegar with the mother because that has the probiotic component. But then whether or not it's in therapeutic dose,
I was just about to ask, are there not
No.
better ways to get probiotics
Completely.
in? Yeah.
completely, the amount that would be in a serve of apple cider vinegar is probably not enough to have an effect, and that is concurrent with the research.
Cool.
Inconclusive and pretty insignificant.
Yeah.
But the one thing I did find is apple cider vinegar for blood glucose regulation and insulin sensitivity. So studies done on diabetics and also the general population with just glucose control. Apple cider vinegar, it has acetic acid in it, which is also a natural breakdown product of our fat burning processes.
Yep.
So it's almost like your body thinks that it is tapping into its fat stores.
Ah, cool.
So it kind of increases, it can lower the glucose response. So postprandial, which is after a meal.
Yes.
It can lower the speed in which glucose is uptaken. And it can also lower the absorption of simple sugars because your body is kind of tricked into thinking it's using fat as fuel, so it doesn't need the glucose.
Okay.
So that's how it works.
Yes.
Do you
And
understand that?
how is that beneficial in a diabetic? Can't they not get the glucose into their cells?
type 2 diabetics.
Yeah, okay.
People that are insulin resistant.
Yeah.
I guess that they have the glucose there and it just ends up circulating because they can't take it up.
Okay, yeah. So this is sending signals for less glucose to go into
circulation.
Cool.
So being absorbed into the bloodstream,
that makes sense.
which can then cause a high blood sugar, which has the detrimental effects for overall metabolism and health.
Gotcha.
So, in summary, with the research I found, acetic acid in apple cider vinegar can inhibit simple sugar activity in the small intestine and suppress carbohydrate absorption.
Mm-hmm.
So having it before bed has shown to decrease fasting glucose levels in humans with type 2 diabetes. Yep. Suggesting an effect of acetic acid on glucose uptake and absorption.
Wow.
And this was done with 30 milliliters of vinegar, so that's probably a tablespoon and a half.
Yeah.
Diluted in 20 milliliters of water.
Oh yeah, nice. That's easy to get in.
Yeah, it wasn't even like insane concentrations. It was general pop.
But again, so you said before bed, so we're not having that around meals or playing with anything like that.
Because its effect on blood sugar can be in isolation to meals.
Nice.
But it also can be done with meals, but this one was done at bedtime as well.
Cool.
So yeah.
Cool. All right, so there is something good about it.
Yeah.
But kind of off track of what I would have expected.
Completely, right?
Yeah.
Because you just think,
So why do people feel so good after their daily shot of ACV?
Placebo.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
It's kind of like lemon juice, lemon water in the morning.
Yes.
No, it doesn't wake up your digestive system. Your digestive system's awake.
Going.
No, it doesn't help.
Is for.
Yeah. And it doesn't cause massive immune benefits. Okay, yes, it has a bit of vitamin C, which is going to help in some way, but 1 tablespoon of lemon juice has about 5 milligrams of vitamin C, and therapeutic dose to combat illness is anywhere from 100 to 1,000. So usual saturation points is 100 to 200, which is good for just prevention. But then combating existing illness is 500 plus.
Yeah, right. So would you say 5 in your...
Gonna have to have a lot of lemons.
Which is not good either. Talk about acidity.
Yes, exactly. Teeth.
Yeah.
Teeth. I was lemon juice and apple cider vinegar.
Anything from drinking it through a straw?
It can help with teeth.
Yeah.
Because obviously the passage, it doesn't swirl around in your mouth.
Yeah.
And have direct contact with your tooth enamel.
Yeah.
And it goes more towards the esophageal root, which doesn't have as many detrimental effects, I guess.
Yeah.
Another thing, if you do like a bit of lemon water, it's not going to harm you at all. Don't brush your teeth directly after. Leave brushing your teeth for half an hour after, because if you've got a little bit of enamel degradation, then you've got manual friction.
Yes.
You're going to break it down even more. You're going to accelerate those harmful effects.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. All right. Nice.
There are lots of info.
Well done to you for double checking your beliefs. If that makes sense.
I had a moment and I was like, wow. It's so good to have discussion around that and have different voices, different opinions coming in. So thank you, Nikki, for your message. I appreciate it more than you know, because I've learned a lot more.
Absolutely.
And it's got me thinking about, pH of the blood even. We mentioned that briefly, but I think I'd like to talk about that in another episode.
Brilliant. Cool.
Because, the alkali diet, preventing cancer.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, it's so tightly regulated. Does it really have an effect?
It's 0.1 here, 0.1 there, yeah.
And if food could change your pH to a significant amount, you'd probably be a bit screwed.
It can't be that easy kind of thing. Because you were talking about the extremes either way, they're disease states.
Yes, completely.
They don't happen accidentally in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Dive into it.
Stay tuned. I'm ready.
Just as a plug, by the time this episode releases, Abbey Renee Nutrition will be open and operating.
Yes.
How exciting.
Oh my gosh.
So probably next episode, I would love for you to do a bit more of a plug on what that is and what is going on. And if anyone who's listening wants to come see Abbey as a clinical nutritionist, we'll let you make sure you have all the information.
You're too good to me, Shell.
It's so exciting. I'm so excited for you.
I know.
Please, I guess. Abbey_Renee_nutrition for Abby's Instagram. We have moveyourmind.podcast and turnsounds.com. You can plug in there for the extra content we release every week.
Just a quick note, I thought about the extra content for this one and I was going to do like a alkalizing smoothie and then do nothing because it doesn't work.
Nothing. You should do some kind of like science experiment where we can see acid working on things. That'd be cool.
Oh, think about that.
Petri dish experiment. Anyway.
Cool, love it.
Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for telling us all about Abbey.
You're very welcome.